So we will now briefly look at the actual charts of the classification. Now this is only by way of introduction to what is there in the Ashtanga Hridayam and how it can help us to apply the principles of Ayurveda in our own times. So if you see here, you can see the food Ahara Dravya charts classified into the Drava Dravya, which means the liquids, and the Anna Dravya, which means the solids. We don't need to really worry about all the names and the details here. This is just to give a schematic representation of the very comprehensive classification that you see in these textbooks. So if you look at the liquids, we have Toya means water, Chira means milk, Ikshu means sugar cane, Madhu means honey, Taila means the oils, and then Madhya means the alcohol, and Mutra means urine. So this is very interesting that if you look at this classification, water is the input and Mutra is the output. The urine is the output of the liquids that are ingested. So from water to urine gives the spectrum of the gunas, water being very Shita Snigdha, milk being the next grade or level of Shita Snigdha guna, and then Ikshu, which is the sugar cane and its products, and then Madhu is the honey, and Taila is Ushna Snigdha. So we can see that when it comes to Madhu, it becomes slightly Shita Ruksha, and then it moves on to Ushna Snigdha, and then Madhya is extremely Ushna Snigdha, and then the urine is ultimately the output of all these liquids that come out of the body. So in order to really understand the classification, we need to really understand the gunas. So in a similar way, the solid foods are also described, with the ones having the most food properties, beginning with the cereals and then ending with spices and condiments, which are on the other end of the spectrum, at the dividing line between what is food and what is medicine. So this slide here, again, it's a very busy slide, and the names can be a bit unsettling, and we needn't worry about it. This is just to illustrate that there is a scheme for classification. So in the next few slides, we'll have an illustrated look at how Ayurveda classifies foods. This meticulous classification is extremely important for us to be able to choose the right kind of foods in the right context. So here we can see the classification of the liquids. So beginning with water and milk, and then the sugarcane products. So the sugarcane products are included in the liquids because they are all derived from sugarcane juice. So even though there are some solids involved here, they are ultimately included in the liquid foods because of the source is a liquid. Similarly, milk. So milk by itself is liquid, but many of the products that are derived from milk are solids, but they are also included in this section. And then we have honey. So if you look at these four categories, water is very Shita Snigdha, which means cold and unctuous, and Chira or milk is even more cool and unctuous. But when it comes to sugar cane, the unctuousness reduces, it becomes less Snigdha. So Shita Snigdha plus then Shita Snigdha minus, and when we come to honey, it's almost Shita Ruksha. And then Taila with gingerly oil, it begins with gingerly oil. Most of the Tailas or oils are Ushna and Snigdha, so they're not Shita and Snigdha. And Madhya is Ushna and Ruksha. And urine, of course, is Ushna and Ruksha. So it is the urine represents the liquid substances that are eliminated from the body, which means urine represents the one extreme of what is not suitable, and water the most suitable, because all living activities of the body, the functions, happen in a watery medium. And now if we were to look at the classification of water, this is quite fascinating, that water is also classified in different ways and their properties are mentioned. So at this point of time, it's just important to explain that pure atmospheric water is distinguished from water that has contacted the atmosphere as well as the ground. So it's a principle in Ayurveda that water, the properties of water is modified based on the place where it is found, so where it is stored. So groundwater itself changes its properties based on whether it is sea or a river or a well or a tank, and these implications are extremely important when we consider the impact on health. So the other thing is that water has also been classified based on heating, hot water, cold water, iced water. So all these interesting descriptions can be found. So using these principles, we can also classify liquids that are not mentioned in the texts within this framework. So if we want to classify them, we need to first understand their gunas. And once we understand the gunas, we can classify them within the scheme. Now if you look at milk, again, cow's milk is recommended the most because it's closest to the human requirements. And then we also have other types of milks described, like camel's milk, buffalo's milk, milk of animals like deers and sheep and elephant, and also goat. So goat's milk compared to cow's milk has more medicinal use, whereas cow's milk has more nutritional use. So you can see that after the milk products are listed, milk is listed, next the milk products are listed. So even though these are actually solids, since they are derived from milk, they are included in this section. So we have ghee, buttermilk, the liquid portion of yogurt, which is removed to make solid yogurt, and then butter, curds, which is in the West known as yogurt, and then various other cheese and other things that are derived from milk are described, and their properties. So although they all come from the same source, their properties vary. We also have descriptions about sugarcane, different types of sugar canes. So this is really very interesting. A lot of varieties have been described. And then what we can derive from them, of course, the sugar and the jaggery. So these are also solids, but they are described in the category of liquids because they derive from sugarcane juice, and most of the time we dissolve sugar in a liquid to use it. So that's the reason why they are considered here. And then we have the oils, different types of oil seeds, the most foremost amongst which is Tila Taila, which is Ushna and Snigdha. And Sarshrapa Taila is the strongest, which is mustard oil. Mustard oil is Ushna and Ruksha. And as we move from one Taila to the other, again you can see the gradation. The ones which are milder in heat are listed first, and the oils which are very Ushna, more Ushna, are listed last. So, amongst the oils, Tila Thaila is the most suitable for the body, which is the sesame oil. And then we have the different types of alcohols. All alcohols are considered as Ushna and Ruksha, and therefore, because they are opposite to the quality of Ojas. So, this is the key thing, that in Ayurveda we have classified the foods based on the impact that they made on the dhatus and Ojas. So, Madhya or alcohol is mentioned towards the end because it is one substance which has almost exactly the qualities which is opposite to Ojas. So if you drink alcohol too much, we will lose our Ojas, which is the biggest problem that Ayurveda points out as unfavorable with respect to alcohol. And again, it's important that all alcohols are not the same. So there are some which are comparatively safer. So all these categories are described and their properties elaborated. So we also have other categories. Classification after alcohol comes the urine. So urine, although it's used in medicine for some specific purposes, they are generally considered incompatible. In Ayurveda, we really do not have descriptions on the use of human urine for health purposes, but cow's urine and goat's urine were commonly used and is an ingredient of many of the Ayurvedic formulations. So this is a brief idea which gives us an understanding of how actually Ayurveda classifies food substances, the liquids. And now if you look at the solids, we have the cereals, the pulses. The cereals are sources of carbohydrates. So these are the energy foods. And then the pulses are the sources of proteins. So these are the foods for our structure of the body. And in Ayurvedic diet, there's usually a combination of a cereal and the pulse. And then we have the category of cooked foods, which are done by various combinations and recipes. And then we have the Mamsa Varga, which is meat. So Ayurveda is not really fully vegetarian. It allows the use of meat for the purposes of nourishment and support of the body. And then we have elaborate descriptions on vegetables and fruits, and also the spices and condiments. So this is how solid foods are classified. And to look at an example, if you just look at the cereals, there are descriptions of different types of rices. So rice itself varies in property. So it's not that we just have one type of rice. The different types of rices, and all these rices have different properties. So this is the overall, approach to classification of foods. And what we have discussed today is only a brief introduction, a glimpse of what Ayurveda has to offer when it comes to knowledge regarding classification of foods and choosing balanced diet.